What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of Snowpiercer Season 4, Episode 7, called Moth to a Flame. This, of course, is directed by Leslie Hope. Okay, so a lot happened in this episode. Very predictable type of episode, but a pretty good episode of Snowpiercer. Not as good as last week, but there is a lot of big stuff that happens in this episode. I get the negatives out of the way. Clark Gregg as Milius is probably the worst villain of this series, to be fairly honest. He is a guy that basically walked into his death. He was acting like he was so smart, but Wilford is always going to be smarter. When he takes him down to whatever level they go to, where it's nothing but ice and snow, ever since we kind of figured out the Headwood and, of course, Icy Bob and everything with Josie, it's pretty much been predicted that, as we know, that Wilford has been working on some kind of protection against ice and storms because, they want to be able to walk out with no problems. So that whole situation is something that Milius just, I guess, would never see coming, to be fairly honest. And therefore, when he takes down Wilford down there to be killed, he basically makes the mistake, makes the critical error of thinking that he's going to, kill Wilford. But Wilford decides to kill himself later on anyways, or at least I think he does. So Wilford gets the upper hand as Milius turns around. And Milius is killed, in essence. That's the end of Clark Gregg's character. It's the end of a terrible villain who had motives. Like, you knew he was going to die just from the fact that he's at the beginning of the episode. We see how he killed his wife because he felt like she double-crossed him. We see his mental state because of that situation. We see him, like, a picture of his wife, the one that we see in the beginning of the episode. It was coming to that conclusion that was going to happen to him, that he was going to die. Because you don't spend that much time at the beginning for one character if that's not going to happen. It happened to Ben. It happened to a bunch of characters in this series. And it happens in every series, to be fairly honest. But like I said, he was just a terrible character. Badly written, not very interesting, kind of a one and done, kind of thrown out the window. It would have been much more interesting to see him maybe in 2 seasons. But we got like 7 episodes of him, and he's just not a very interesting character, to be fairly honest. And there's like a double twist with Nema and stuff like that. But the way he's like throwing his wang around and trying to, tell Nema what to do, and Nema's like, it's not ready, but we're gonna, Milius is like, we're gonna do it anyways. It's just one of those things you saw coming, to be fairly honest. So there we go. Milius is dead. Goodbye to bad rubbish character writing. I feel bad for Clark Gregg because he's a really good character actor. He's a guy who was clearly one of the best parts about the MCU, but here he's just not given much to do, fairly honest. He's a guy that is more bark than bite. He's like, the guy that, puts down Darth Vader and Darth Vader chokes him is like, that type of thing. And then everything that kind of leads up to that, of course, Alex and Melanie reunite. And of course, Alex tells Melanie about Ben, which of course would make, Melanie very upset. It was actually quite heartbreaking to watch Melanie. Thank God we got Jennifer Connelly back, but to watch her kind of have to go through those emotions, realizing that she's never going to see Ben again, that she didn't see him before he died. And she was basically like sent out on a wild goose chase because, the whole idea that Milius and the crew needed Big Alice and Snowpiercer to do their thing. So it's really interesting thing to see. And then, of course, she tells them about everything that's going on. Melanie hears the guy in the door and all that stuff happens. So, it's kind of left there until we get to the Nema stuff. But we also have, Layton working with, Wilford. And, of course, Melanie knows that Wilford's up to something. And it leads to Wilford basically wanting to take his trains back and wanting to basically leave Melanie and Layton behind. And, of course, Layton wants to get his daughter, wants to get Josie. It was a little weird to see Josie kind of fighting off people after she's been giving so much blood to Wilford or whatever she's been doing because, of course, they're working on that cold freeze chemical. But also they're working on Liana, stuff like that. And it's a lot of weirdness, to be fairly honest. It really is. I don't know. I just don't really care for Layton's character. I like Daveed Diggs. He's great Hamilton. He's a great actor, musician, stuff like that. He's never gotten his due. He's never felt like a really interesting character. He feels like he flies off the handle really easily, and his emotions really get to him, and he just doesn't ever feel like a competent character, to be fairly honest. I don't think he ever really has been a competent character, but you had some fun with him in the first and second seasons. It got a little tiresome with his detective stuff, which is brought up again, and that's kind of it. Like, we find out, well, I'll get to the Wilford stuff and all that later on, but his reintroduction with Liana and how Hedwood gave the baby back and went off on to do her thing and so on and so forth was very emotional, and I appreciate it. And it's, it is nice to see a little bit of credence there. But once again, the whole Zara, the whole Josie, the whole Layton thing is just never really made any sense. And I don't know. It just it is what it is. So I don't know. But we'll go to the Big Alice stuff. Yeah, like the best stuff with, Ruth, and then she wants to see Audrey, but there's a whole situation where, Javi and Oz, they have to figure out where the dynamite is at. They know it's on the mountainside. They have to warn everyone. But as Big Alice is approaching, they have to tell Big Alice to stop because they have to make sure the train tracks are going to explode, which leads to that ultimate thing that happens in every episode where Javi decides he's going to basically spray a freezing chemical on the bomb, and we don't see what happens to Javi, even though we probably know he just threw the bomb off the cliff and allowed it to explode. I'm pretty sure he's not dead because there's already enough death in this this episode. At least I think there's enough death. But of course, Ruth and of course Beth don't see that. They see the explosion, so they don't know what's happening. They don't know whatever's going to happen. We'll find out in the next couple episodes as we get closer to the end of the series. But it's kind of the concluding point to Bess and the crew getting back to New Eden, which we find out that the things that Melanie have been working on, and the reason that Alex had nosebleeds and Nima has been working on, is the fact that this is something that Melanie tells Nima. It's like, we can't send these rockets off because of the radiation, which it causes, these issues with the bloody noses, which causes a lot of problems that could happen in New Eden, or what happened in New Eden, and why the radiation is just not sound. But Nima's just like, we have to do it. We have, he basically, once he finds out that, Milius is dead and Wilford's going to board the train, he decides he's going to go off and do his thing that, Milius had agreed to. But of course, Melanie's like, we can't do that. We have to do more experimentation, because if we send these rockets off and then we cause more New Edens, the radiation could kill everyone. It's a pretty bad thing. But it's probably why Oz is hearing LJ, and why these things are happening, and why it's still cold and people are having issues, because the simple fact that this New Eden is not tested. Is basically they throw a bomb up in the air and hopefully everything works, and that's just not how that works. And of course, as we find out, Nima has been working on this experiment, this New Eden experiment, for 15 years. And as we learn from Wilford, as he smokes a cigar or cigarette, which apparently contains kind of poison. I think you gotta help me out here. I'm guessing it was a poison or something. He poisoned himself, or he did something, but he basically kills himself. And for somebody who really is integral to this show, it felt like a weird moment for the show. For a guy that was, Andre Layton was going to shoot him, but Wilford decides to kill himself. At least I think he kills himself. We still have 3 more episodes, so if this is the way Wilford goes out, it's pretty, excuse my language, pretty piss poor. It's really bad. It's a really bad way for Sean Bean to go out. I'm not saying that we didn't want to see him die, because that's what Sean Bean's known for. But you build up this character who is clearly having issues, as we see from the blood transfusions. The way he dies is by smoking a poison-laced cigar or cigarette or whatever that is, blunt, whatever it is. And he talks about how Nima basically is the reason behind everything, behind the freeze, behind the chemical went up in the air, caused all these issues. Now, if I'm understanding right, he did it so he could test the Gemini chemical. So therefore, there is an evil intent through Nima's eyes, which is kind of comes out of left field, but doesn't, because you could kind of see that coming. It's one of those things where Nima has been very squeamish, not squeamish, but he's been very kind of like kind of in the corner, like a beaten dog or something like that. So you knew there was either a kind of a twist where he was playing everyone, and I think that's exactly what happened. But it sounds like Nema is the reason that Snowpiercer and this frozen winter wonderland of hell is even happening. And once again, it's honestly very predictable, to be fairly honest. It kind of, yeah, okay. I'm just still kind of bothered by Wilford's death. It doesn't make any sense. It feels very useless. It just makes the fact that the show they knew was ending, so therefore Sean Bean really wanted to be in it very much anymore. Jennifer Connelly clearly doesn't want to be in it much more anymore because she's only in like 3 episodes apparently. She gets knocked out by Nema as we learn what exactly is happening, at least what I can comprehend of what's happening. And I know you guys will probably correct me on it. It just feels like they're going into very I've been there, done that territory, which kind of sucks. Once again, this season really feels like it's overrated. It feels like they're doing things just tropey, and I don't really like that, to be fairly honest. I'm not, like I said, this episode had a lot of emotion. Clearly had the concluding aspects of killing people off to get to a conclusion, but it just doesn't do it very well. It's not written very well. It makes poor choices when it comes to the death of a major character. At least Ben's character justified, even though I really had a problem with it. It really is more justified than what it is here. Maybe Wilford's not dead. Fortunately, I think he is. As we see at the end, Snowpiercer decouples, leaving half the cars alone by themselves with, of course, Leighton and Josie and Leona on the train. So we're gonna have to figure out how that's gonna work. And I don't know. We got 3 more episodes, people. They got to figure out themselves out because it's not looking good at what this series is going to do as it concludes. But the title at least is apt. Moth to the Flame. I mean, it's an apt title, but overall, it's not a bad episode. It's not a terrible episode. It's not a great episode or a good episode. It's a okay episode that does try to continue the story forward. It's just a little too much too late, or a little too little late, or whatever. I don't know how you say it. You know what I mean. It's a little too late on this kind of stuff, and I just feel like the deaths weren't really justified. It's, Milius's death feels unearned, and Wilford's death really feels unearned, and it's leading to some nonsense with Nema now, who's the second half bad guy, and yeah, it is what it is. So I don't know. It's an episode of Snowpiercer season 4, the mediocre season. So there you go. So with that said, score, let's give it a 7 out of 10, to be generous, because it has some moments that are very touching and very sad, and it's not the worst episode in the world. So 7 out of 10 for season 4, episode 7 of Snowpiercer, called Moth to a Flame. Anyways, that'll do it. That'll be my take on this new episode of Snowpiercer. Thank you so much for watching. Comments below, as I always say. Let me know what you think of the episode. Did you like it? Did you not like it? If you liked the Wilford death, tell me why. If you didn't, tell me why as well. So, with that said, if you like what you see on the channel, hit the subscribe button, the Joy Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top of the fun's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.